Welcome to the IAB UK Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the IAB UK Podcast. James here. This week we've got a brilliant episode for you, hot on the heels of an exclusive IAB UK CTV roundtable, which focused on shaping the future of CTV advertising, and we invited some of the industry's key voices who took part in the discussion to come and have a conversation in the podcast studio. Together, we're trying to tackle some of the big questions about the path towards shared standards in CTV, how to address the fragmentation, and that sometimes challenges the transparency, and that was a big topic that we were talking about this morning, and there's a whole range of other things that we covered that we'll no doubt get into here. Now, according to IAB Compass, CTV spend is set to hit 3 billion by 2028, potentially more. So now's the time to talk about all the innovations and the solutions that are pushing us forward to a more open, a more accessible CTV landscape. Joining me around the table today is PubMatic's Tim Wilcox, Vevo's Sarah Gull, and MIQ's Mike Lampard. Welcome to you all. Perhaps we'll start with you, Tim. Takeouts from this morning's session.
I think the key one for me is that we should really be talking about TV rather than CTV or advanced TV or any other kind of TV. Actually, that was the main takeout for me, is that, you know, it's important not to confuse matters by making it a really specialist area that actually just confuses the living daylights out of everybody.
And it was Rich Brandt, your colleague at Vevo, Sarah, who had written this piece about saying actually it's time to drop the C or the A, or the other one that Tim was talking about. We just need to talk about TV, which seems a lot simpler, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I do understand it's easier said than done, but I definitely stick with that narrative, especially coming from Vevo. I think one of the things that were discussed was very prominently discussed during the IAB earlier this morning was one of the barriers to CTV is that TV is still at the heart of media, creative and media planning. Yeah. What we're saying is that's still the case. You're just sharing your space with other publishers who happen to give you that incremental reach. And that's another thing that I would like to talk about a bit later, like what even is incrementality to begin with in this modern world or in this media landscape. Another thing that stood out for me was transparency, because obviously at the heart of all that we do lies measurement, and with measurement comes transparency. But again, standardization is still somewhere that we need to, there's a lot of work to be done there, but I feel like the likes of IAB, BAB are looking in that direction. However, the onus shouldn't just be on media owners or the likes of like independent bodies like IAB to do that. It should rest with agencies as well. It should be a combined effort, and hopefully with a lot of collaboration we'll get there at some point in time. But yeah, I think transparency and that TV is still at the heart of creative and media planning. CTV and TV are not two different things.
Very good point. And then it felt like we had a proper cross-section in the room. We had a bunch of people that Sarah was talking about, agencies with their advertisers, with their tech platforms. We had broadcasters, Barb were in the room. Your takeout from sitting through it this morning, Mike?
All of the discussions were absolutely amazing. And kind of to pick on Sarah's point there, what every single panelist at one point talked about transparency.
Yeah, they did.
And when we think of TV, you know, in my view, we've had in the connected TV space, it's moved ahead so quickly. And we've not as an industry sort of caught up in time with each other. And so we've got this issue of, hey, if I put some money into the connected TV space, I maybe don't get the same visibility that I would see in the linear space. And ultimately that fragmentation exists because there's a lot of walled gardens out there. And we've only recently started to see the really big players like your SVOD, Amazons and Primes and stuff bring in those ad tiers that do give you parity with that kind of traditional broadcast world.
There was a bit of talk on CTV, and I don't know, you came into it on your table, Tim, that there feels like there are broadcasters, and that's broadcast quality, and they're really proud of it. There's another tier, maybe Vevo are in there, but you might put Disney in there, you might put Prime Video in there, and then there feels like there's another tier somewhere as well. Is it a right thing to sort of put it all together and pretend it's one thing, or do we have to acknowledge that each of them are perhaps different and doing different roles?
There is an argument for both, right? I mean, if you're talking to traditional linear TV teams, they are used to doing running campaigns through the big broadcasters directly. And so there is an argument to say that kind of remains as is. And I think from what we've seen at PubMatic is that, when you're looking at sort of non-broadcast CTV partners, those are typically going through the programmatic teams.
Yeah.
The problem that then exists is there's no one really knitting this all together. So, CTV, as it were, is to a degree becoming the ugly stepchild of the industry because no one's dealing with all of it. There's no consistency across all of that. And then the downside for the non-broadcast CTV partners is, being realistic, the scale isn't there through the programmatic teams themselves. The scale is still going to sit with the traditional TV teams. So there is an argument to have a sort of a 2 or 3 tier approach, but in all honesty, it does make a lot of sense, I think, to try and group them all as one for the benefit of the industry. Otherwise, you're just going to end up biasing towards 3, 4, 5 key players, and that's not really to the benefit of anybody other than those 4, 5 players.
Who do you think stitches it together? Is it that's kind of planner, strategist type role in an agency who can say who could be doing it at this level, rather than when you get into this execution, you might talk to an AV team here and a programmatic team? Should it be them, or is there someone else that should be trying to do that?
I mean, it makes sense to do it at a planning level, because quite often the media plan is written and then it's passed over to the relevant buying team. So the media plan is constructed by the planning team. They will then divvy that up, and let's say they give, 70% to the TV team and 30% to the programmatic team. They'll then go off and do their own thing. So I think it does come down to ideally planning teams giving that budget to the same place, but at the same time it's up to the sales side to make that easier for those buyers to buy it all in one place. And I think that's something that at the moment we maybe still have a little bit of work to do.
You're nodding furiously, Sarah. Give us your take on Tim's point of view.
I 100% agree with you. I think going back to that initial thought that I had, that the onus mainly, I think, rests with the agencies and specifically media planners. There's a lot of research out there from independent measurement partners like Ofcom, IAB as well, and you partner with different agencies, independent agencies, and it's just showing how the media landscape is changing. And with that, we need to sort of adapt to it rather than being ignorant about it and sort of like, let's just not look the other way because it's easier. There needs to be a lot of it's important in order to ensure seamless interoperability across platforms, technology partners, media owners, because at the heart of it would lie relationship building that would go on for like forever. But yes, 100%, I think it's not just one party that needs to look after this. And I think at this point in time, it seems like media owners have to do a lot of explaining to do when it should be more of a collaborative approach. Nods
from this direction as well.
Yeah, I mean, I largely agree with everything. I think we need to remember that it's where the audience is.
And they don't differentiate between all these things. We made a joke of it. It's like, I'm going to watch some CTV now, or I'm going to watch some linear telly. That just don't work like that.
Exactly. And to Tim's point there, everybody has a place on the TV strategy. And it's natural to start with the big people like the broadcasters, and then look for where is the next largest part of, like, the next source for your audience, largest source for your audience. And what it tends to be is it's sort of a quality spectrum. So it starts with broadcast, and then outside of that, you've got your SVODs, you've got your YouTubes, but not all YouTube is equal. A lot of YouTube content, user generated, it's not necessarily where an advertiser wants to be. And so it's on us as buyers to find those pockets. How big is that pocket? Okay, when you've exhausted that, there's other parts. There's your longer tail, AVOD and FAST, which is great content. It's broadcast quality. FAST channels are pretty much the same as a linear experience. And work from there. So and I'm not saying you kind of have to step one by one in each of those. That can happen in parallel. But when you're planning to buy TV, like, look at the entire picture, and remember that those smaller pockets, they still add value, and they do bring incremental reach, which in this fragmented market is so important.
Yeah, well, maybe that's another thing. I mean, you talked about incrementality.
Yeah.
Tell us what you mean by it, because I've had various conversations with different people who are. But give me your take on it.
Yeah, I feel like, there's so much this term's been flowing. We throw out this term fragmentation in the market, and it's also fragmented. I feel like it's intentional rather than inevitable. It's intentional because there's still so much work that's been done across cross-media measurement. It's just not accessible to mid to lower size media owners because it's really expensive. So even if they want to prove their incrementality, which is like, we'll give you +1 on your reach if you advertise with us, and like you're already going with, like, most of the spend is going with linear TV. It's still there, but this is, if you spend with us, this is how much we're going to add on to what you already have in your pocket. I feel like when it comes to going back to your point, I think you raised such a beautiful point there, that we need to look at it from the audience's perspective as to where the audiences are. So if rather than looking at from a media owner or platform perspective, so out of 100%, 70% is going to go to linear channels, and then so on and so forth, your SVOD, YouTube and all that, and that's another discussion altogether. But that shouldn't really be the case, because your younger audiences are on platforms like YouTube. Right? So linear TV, there is, I think the reality is very clear. I don't want to stir any problems for anyone, but I think
we saw a chart at the start, didn't we, that I think Christy at the IB had shown, which I think was some independent data, and saying, it's
the disparity is it's appalling, and not acknowledging that. Like, we all know that, and we acknowledge it, and then we go back and do nothing about it. is really heartbreaking, to be honest, from a media owner's perspective. Like, we've been talking about this since forever, especially because for Vevo, we're the biggest platform is YouTube, and we have last year we launched in collaboration with Channel 4 a very extensive piece of research where we've shown time and again that how ad perception, ad receptivity is massively different, and how your ad perception is actually negatively impacted by 5 times if you advertise in a non-premium environment. So obviously, your audience, there's so many layers to it. You can't just as a media planner, it would be borderline unethical to just go here's my money, this goes in traditional medium because that's how we've always done it, and that's easy, rather than doing your research and then going about it, and then having an open mind, really, I think. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
I think there's inertia at play. I think you nailed it, that there is a sense of, well, this is kind of how we've always done it, so it's kind of how we're always going to do it. And I think you mentioned it, Mike, unless we make it easy, then turkeys aren't going to sort of vote for Christmas. You're going to do things the way that you've always done it, maybe.
And that's where the transparency is so important. Not to get too into the weeds, but sometimes we see in the CTV space that people aren't forthcoming with the content that ads are being shown against. And I was speaking about this on my table, and I was speaking to a supplier that we work with. I don't want to mention names, and they were saying, well, does that really matter? You're looking for scale and whatnot. And my argument here is, okay, if you're looking for that 16 to 34 audience, we know they're difficult to find, they pop up in different places. It absolutely matters to know the content, because whether or not you're advertising against, I'm just making this up, but an in-betweeners fast channel. Imagine that exists. You can imagine.
That would be brilliant.
It would be brilliant. Channel 4 should license that to somebody. But as a buyer, I could be okay, I'm going to buy, from my YouTube and my premium YouTube space, of which Vevo is one of those people, big fans of Vevo. I'm going to go to my Channel 4 because they're there for the 16 to 34s. And then in the rest of the CTV ecosystem, I'm going to target that content that I know that audience is against. And I feel some of the inertia there is some suppliers don't want people to cherry pick. But ultimately, there's lots of marketing campaigns going on all the time. And the more we can kind of drill down to our audience, the more we can influence our advertisers to bring more money into that CTV space and stop the overinvestment in linear as it stands at the moment.
Yeah. Covered a whole number of things this morning. Brand safety and suitability was one that we started. Fraud got a little bit of mention. Frequency capping we kind of got into. In terms of what you think is sort of we could tackle first, or there's some low-hanging fruit, Tim, anything of all the sort of the challenges that we started talking about, anything you think actually that we could just go in and work together, and that would be, I hesitate to say, fairly straightforward, but there's some things that might be easier to crack than others.
Do you know what? And we didn't actually really talk about it this morning very much, but we always hear about premium inventory. What is it? And I actually had a conversation with somebody in my team on the way back, and she asked my opinion as to what I felt premium was. And not everyone's going to agree with this, but what I said to her is, like, from what I've seen, for me, premium is where any brand can utilize that space for ad space, right? So I'll give you an example. If you're a luxury brand, and I won't name any, but if you're a luxury brand, let's say, and you're looking at advertising your, I don't know, like let's say a £1,500 handbag, you're not typically going to go onto a website where you have paid users with no ads or ad supported free users.
Yeah.
Because the argument is, well, if they can't afford to use that platform, why are they going to go out and spend £1,500 on a handbag? Yeah. For me, that would define whether it's premium or not. But we don't really have any standard in place with regards to the brand safety or really more the brand suitability, actually, about what is premium. So for me, that's something that actually I think is some fairly low hanging fruit, because everyone obsesses over premium. Yeah. No one really can tell you what premium really is.
There's no agreed definition for sure.
No. We're quite unique as an industry. If you go out and say, okay, I want to buy a luxury car, you'll know the difference between a luxury car and a premium one. If you want to go out and buy a dress from a luxury brand or a premium brand, you'll be able to name a luxury brand and you'll be able to buy a premium brand. Yeah. But we don't have that.
So with your example, using the luxury brands there, I think that almost skews it, because if we think about TV advertising, it's usually goods and services and products that everybody uses. That's why you go on TV, because you need to hit as much of the population as possible. And so with that in mind, like if you think about what's on just regular TV, I use police interceptors, big fan of police interceptors.
Very niche all of a sudden, isn't it?
Would we say that's premium?
By the way, I didn't say it was the perfect example.
No. Just as a thought experiment, because I totally agree with this. There's a lot of times people, if we can just poll the room, is police interceptors a premium bit of content? Well, it might be professionally produced TV-like content. It would have the hallmarks of something that's premium. It's not user-generated, long form. Yeah. There's editorial oversight.
It might not be suitable for said luxury brand.
Yeah, but it would still be premium in my view.
You see, I would say it's not.
That's so interesting. So if you're advertising toothpaste and you're advertising a slightly fancy toothpaste, what is to say that your audience doesn't enjoy a bit of police interceptors?
Yeah, and you can make that case for absolutely everything.
Yeah,
you're right, but you have to have, it's again like going out and buying a premium car and having it put onto Pimp My Ride, spending $100,000 on it. It's the amount of money that it's cost is still the same as a luxury car. That doesn't make it one. And I would make that point here, that maybe it's all about the categorization of something like police interceptors, which, I would love to hear more about generally. But if you think about it, you're, within that content, it is basically in one form or another promoting crime, right?
Well, I would say it's tackling crime, but...
Well, it's also promoting crime because something's happening. Otherwise, the police are not chasing them. So this is why I would say, in my really weird warped world, that I wouldn't call that premium. But like I say, I don't expect people to necessarily agree with that. But I just I think it's about the concept of,
and that's the difficulty, right?
Well, it's subjective, but it's we've both got, and I've got a different view. I want to bring Sarah in as well, because you will say, and I think most of us probably agree, that Vevo is premium content, professionally produced,
100%.
high-end music videos. Well, I'm assuming you would say that.
I'm sat next to Sarah. There's nowhere to say it. No. I would, because I think you can absolutely associate, a high-end luxury handbag with certain certain music artists. Yeah, absolutely, and they do have associations with those brands. So yes,
is Vevo a proxy for premium? Could you assume that 99.9% of everything Vevo makes, because they're trusted, is that a proxy for premium? I wonder, is the sort of the content maker or the broadcasters, is that a means of categorising?
Blimey, James, you're pushing me into a corner here.
Well, anyway, I want to hear your take on it, Sarah.
Oh wow, I think it's. Anyways, I'll get on with it. I respectfully disagree with you that there is not a proper definition around premium, what premium is, because if you can say that everything that Vevo does is premium, or which I am assuming that's what you've said in your answer before, Vevo follows Barb's Fit for TV framework. And the Barb's Fit for TV framework is actually informed by the audiences, which is your normal consumer. So, and to our surprise, last year when we did that Channel 4 research, we were somewhere thinking that people wouldn't know what premium is. Like, there's not going to be, maybe they're not that educated to understand what really is premium. But actually, they're very much in line with how advertisers think. And that's very much in line with Barb's Fit for TV framework. So, and I think in your example, you refer to luxury brands mainly, but I think we need to think, again, as you said, it was not the best example, but like, obviously when you take a toothpaste or, I don't know, a hand cream that would make TV or anything that's on a broadcaster level or Vevo level, which is premium essentially because of the Fit for TV framework, defined by your layman consumer, would be premium. So I feel like we have got the definition, but there needs to be regulation to monitor that, which I don't know if that rests with Barb or someone else, but then content needs to be regulated, and like, is this channel, is this program premium content or not? That's something that I think we need to like get really granular in and like really dive deeper into it, because I think media planners, what I've observed stepping into agencies, or I've got a lot of colleagues who work on the buyer side of things, and I just feel like we approach media plans from our own perspective. Like we've got this glasses on where we're like, okay, how do I consume content? And that's how I'm going to work out the media plan for this particular
inherently
campaign.
Biased by the fact that,
that's unconscious bias, and we really need to shrug that off. And that's where it's a responsibility, and it's bigger than the competition that we are working with. That's there. The commercial side of things are there, but at a macro level, I think the responsibility rests with us to educate ourselves, and that's something I feel like is severely lacking at this point in time.
2 points. Yes, of course, I was mentioning luxury, but that's it's just purely because you have to go to the extremes. So luxury is the high end, and obviously you've got the opposite end. So of course,
crypto ads or something.
I'm not judging anyone in terms of the other end, but it's just about the extremes and it being available across the board. I think my overall point is just that there is no standard one definition, right? So you asked a really good point, James, right? Is Vevo premium? I can give an opinion on that, but somebody else might give a completely different one. The reality of it is that, if we look at, you've got the IAB gold standard, for example, why isn't there something similar with regards to the actual nature of the ads? Because at the moment you go and speak to people within some businesses, they will say, publisher A is premium, and somebody in another agency will say, no, it's not. And that for me is the main problem. You don't, like I say, you don't have to go with the idiosyncrasies of what I've just demonstrated. But the point is more about having some form of standardization where you can say this publisher is premium, this one maybe is, tier B or whatever we want to say.
Very, very good point. It sort of came to life, didn't it, 10 minutes ago? It's fantastic. I would love to end, and we kind of ended we talked about some of the issues, we heard from different speakers, but this is still arguably one of the most exciting spaces in digital advertising. We talked about connected TV, how it's making retail media owners, become brand builders rather than bottom of the funnel. The investment. It's an exciting space. So let's finish on a positive note. I'd love to get from each of you what you're sort of most hopeful about when you look forward, Mike, and you think about CTV over the next year or so.
I work a lot with ACR data, and I've been using ACR data, and at MIQ we've been using ACR data.
And for the uninitiated watching or listening to this, give us the 30-second explain on ACR data.
So ACR data is automatic content recognition for the vast majority of smart TVs. There's a bit of code or a chip that will essentially record what happens on the glass. So you see the content people are watching and their ad exposure. Yeah. And it's a really nice data source that stitches together your linear and your streaming and allows you to, if you're running a linear campaign, it allows you to find those pockets of the country and those audiences that you're missing and then go and find them on different mediums.
Very nice.
So I'm looking forward to advances in ACR data where we bring more audiences into there. And so we have an even better picture of what's happening across the landscape, across the two extremes of linear and streaming.
Perfect. And another acronym, which is just what we're after as well, which is perfect. Tim, what's keeping you hopeful?
I'm hopeful that the TV industry as a whole, and I am bucketing CTV within that, a bit like Mike was saying earlier, actually becomes more focused on the audience and the end outcome. Because there is still some snobbery, I think, across the board in terms of, I want my ad to air at this time. But actually, there are some really great CTV players out there who might not have massive audiences, but their audience is relevant. Yeah. And that's being ignored, I think, to a degree at the moment. So I'm hopeful that can all come together and target audiences taken maybe a little bit more seriously with regards to the outcome of campaigns. Yeah. And
Sarah, Jerry Springer's final thought is with you.
Again, the onus rests with everyone, like every party involved, from media owners, technology providers, and your agencies. And I think everyone needs to do their own research and invest a lot in R&D, because at the end of the day, we also need to move beyond our RNF, is like reach and frequency, and look beyond it, so like attention.
Yeah.
What do we even, like, that's like a whole
dimension.
Talked about that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes, whole and we have actually done a research project with Amplified Intelligence this year. The research is going to be out very time soon. We've got the findings, some really, really impressive results there. So yeah, I think, and obviously at the heart of it lies affordable cross-media measurement, because you can't possibly be paying 20-25 grand per campaign just to like prove that how effective we are as digital partners or CTV partners. So yeah, I think I would like to end there.
We sound very hopeful indeed. Well, you all do. Thank you very, very much indeed. And thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's been quite the IAB day, hasn't it? Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this afternoon. I really, really appreciate it. Tim Wilcox from PubMatic, Sarah Gold from Vevo, and Mike Lampard from MIQ there. That wraps up our deep dive into the future of CTV. A big thank you to our guests for sharing their insights. A big thank you to all of the speakers at the roundtable this morning. You can find a write-up on the IAB site. The need for shared standards and the innovations that come with it to kind of make a difference has never been clearer, and it's abundant that collaboration and clarity are both key to unlocking CTV's potential. And if unlocking CTV's potential is music to your ears, then I've got some great news. I mentioned IAB Compass earlier. Compass is one of 5 different reports that look to the future in a number of emerging areas of digital advertising. You can access that on the IAB site, iabuk.com/compass, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. The next event and the last one for the IAB is IAB Debrief on the 19th of November down at the Ham Yard in London. These are fast-paced, in real-life case studies where you get to hear from advertisers and their partners on some of the brilliant campaigns that have run this year. Agencies and advertisers come for free. I hope you'll join us for that. And that's it for this week. Thank you very much for listening, or if you've been watching, thanks for watching too. Bye-bye.
IAB UK, building a better future for digital advertising for the benefit of everyone.